Hello my friends, thank you for joining me. Wonderful to have you with us again today. We are visiting Mount Gerizim, which is a very important historical location in the center of the Shomron. It's actually a place that I can see from behind my house in Kfar Tapuach. I can look to the north and see Mount Gerizim. Mount Gerizim is a biblical location. It is the place of the blessing. In Hebrew, we call it Har Bracha, the Mount of Blessing. And on Mount Gerizim, there is a Samaritan neighborhood. In other videos, I will go to length telling about the Samaritans. But the Samaritans are an Israelite people who observe the Torah, and they are mentioned in the New Testament as well. The term, the Good Samaritan, refers to the Samaritans who at the time of the first century were in animosity with the Jews. We are Jews, they're Samaritans, we both believe in the Bible, but they believe that Mount Gerizim is the holy mountain, where the Jews believe that Mount Moriah, or the Temple Mount, is the holy mountain in Jerusalem. Today we're visiting at the archaeological site on the top of Mount Gerizim, and this site is actually the holy place for the Samaritan people. The Samaritan people come to this mountain to observe their three holidays: Passover, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. They make a pilgrimage to the holy mountain. And it is a very interesting archaeological site. The Samaritans, like the Jews, were at war with the Romans at the beginning of the first century, and they were oppressed by the Romans and the Byzantines. The Byzantines took over Mount Gerizim, and they built a huge church on top of the Samaritan holy place. So at the archaeological site, we can see the archaeological remains of the Byzantine octangle church that was built on top of the Samaritan holy place. Archaeologists believe that beneath the church they have found artifacts of the Samaritan temple that stood at that location. There's some theological disputes between the Samaritans themselves and the archaeologists regarding the temple that stood there. We can speak at length more about this when we visit the site together. And of course I urge you to come and visit Israel and visit the Shomron and see these very beautiful places. The Mount Gerizim site is administered by Israel's Park Association, the Park Society. There is an entrance fee that you need to pay, but the site is well kept. It is very clean, and it has a visitor center with a very nice informational video telling the story of the site and of the Samaritans and of the archaeological dig and so forth. The video presentation itself is worthwhile to visit the site to see that presentation. All of the sites that are administered by Israel's Park Association, the Reshut HaTeva ve'Aganim, all have clean restrooms and water and shade and a gift shop, and all of that is included in the entry fee. There is parking right very close to the visitor center. The entire site, part of the site, is accessible for people in wheelchairs or disabled, but it's not all accessible. There are areas, particularly in the archaeological site, which is not too far from the visitor center. It's probably about 300, 400 meters walk from the visitor center, maybe a bit less, but there is steps that you need to climb up into the archaeological site and then down again, and walking on ancient stone floors, that pavement in the Byzantine church. So part of those areas are not really friendly for people with wheelchairs, and we should know about that. This is important to you, and you need more information on this tour or other tours, feel free to send me a line and I will look into this further to see what we can do and what where we're limited for people who have accessibility issues. And in general, I'd like to hear your input. So if you are enjoying this video and have questions, please do feel free to write them in the comment section below, and I will be sure to respond to your questions. In the Bible, in the book of Deuteronomy, we read, "When the Lord your God brings you into the land that you are about to enter and possess, you shall pronounce the blessings at Mount Gerizim and the curse at Mount Ebal." That is in Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 29. And we also read in the Bible that the children of Israel, who were 12 tribes, were directed by Joshua and by the Kohanim, the priests, to split into two groups. Members of 6 tribes were to climb up on Mount Gerizim, and members of 6 tribes to climb up on Mount Ebal. When the Kohanim read the blessings, they faced Mount Gerizim. For that reason, Mount Gerizim is considered the Mount of Blessing. And when they read the curses, they faced Mount Ebal in the north. So Mount Gerizim is considered the Mount of Blessing. Mount Ebal is considered the mount that they faced when they were saying the curses, but it's not considered a cursed mountain. And of course there's the altar of Joshua that the archaeologist Adam Zartal found on the top of Mount Ebal, which is another place that we should visit. It's a little more complicated to get to that site because of the areas that were given over to the Palestinian Authority, so that makes our access to Mount Ebal more difficult. Verse refers to the tribes that climbed up on Mount Ebal, the 6 tribes. So I will read this verse so we know who the 6 tribes were who climbed up on Mount Gerizim, the Mount of Blessing. And the verse in Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 12 says, "After you have crossed the Jordan, the following shall stand on Mount Gerizim, when the blessing for the people is spoken: Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Issachar, Joseph, and Benjamin." So those were the 6 tribes who stood on Mount Gerizim when the blessings were recited. My friends, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I look forward to hearing your input. And if you enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe and share it with your friends. Be well. Shalom.